Okay, so first thing I want to talk about is I'm not a creep. I just realized that like most of my videos are just out like in the woods or in the dark, wandering around streets. So I felt it was important to just acknowledge straight away that I'm not a creep. That was just that was circumstantial. Part of me feeling extremely self-conscious about filming myself, making a video, and that persists to this very moment. I feel very uncomfortable right now that I'm filming this, and someone could walk in at any moment. Such is the nature of Lent and overcoming fear, I guess. The fear is very real right now. So, yeah, where should we go? Sin. Sin's a word, a concept that is one of the many biblical ideas which has permeated the culture so that most people recognize the word sin, but don't really have an idea what it means or where it comes from or what it is. And one thing that I get reasonably a lot, or one thing that people like to speak about is, is to ask something like, is taking drugs a sin? Is taking alcohol a sin? Is taking a lot of alcohol a sin? What if, and this obviously, maybe not obvious, but this kind of misses the entire point of what sin is. The first sin is generally acknowledged to be like the Eden story, which we talked about, Adam and Eve rebelling against God, and what God said to do, and spinning the whole order out of whack. The next incident of sin in the Bible comes from this somewhat unusual story of Cain and Abel, which is another story which has made its way into, or parts of it have made its way into like secular culture or the secular vernacular. And it has a strange line where God says to Cain, I just read it, but I've forgotten it. Something like, it's in Genesis 4:7 if you want to look it up. You need to be careful because sin is crouching at your door. There's no concept of sin. There's no introduction of what sin is. There's no explanation. It just starts talking about sin as if we're meant to know what that means. Interestingly, there is a reference to a fruit. Cain and Abel are brothers. Abel, Abel tends the fields and Cain tends the flocks, I think. Or Abel tends the flocks and Cain tends the fields. Anyway, they have to give an offering to God, and one of them gives a piece of fruit, which is interesting because if you're reading the Bible chronologically, if you're reading Genesis chronologically, then where do we know fruit from? There's only one place we know fruit from at this point. So maybe there's a bit of, maybe it's trying to remind us of the Eden story. I'm not sure. Anyway, sin. So things like, is taking drugs a sin? Is X, Y, Z a sin? People want to know what's a sin because they want to know what they can and they can't do. What will I get into trouble for? What will I not get into trouble for? What is permissible? What is unpermissible? Well, the whole point of sin is not a list of rights. As far as I understand it, it's not a list of rights and wrongs. It's not a balance sheet. A lot of people think that religion, Christianity especially, is a balance sheet. You got to do more good than you got to do than bad, more good than wrong. That's so, take one message from this video, take one message from all these videos. That's so wrong. It's not a balance sheet at all. It's got nothing to do with a balance sheet. It's nothing to do with, I've led a good life, I've done good things. And that's hard, it's difficult to accept, but that's the message. And we're going to explain that more and more and more as we go, but that's just, here's what it's not. It's not a list of right and wrong. So when people ask, like, is this a sin? Is this a sin? They're basically saying, like, what is the minimum, or what is it I can do to gain, I don't know, some sort of favor to get into heaven so God doesn't punish me? I don't know what they're really getting at, but it seems to be a sense of what's the minimum. What do I need to do to keep out of trouble? Sin is more the idea that we're wandering in the wrong direction. We've gone off track where we're putting ourselves first instead of God first. I heard someone describe it as the culpable disturbance of shalom, and shalom is a biblical idea of peace, which again is it's a good video idea. So we'll talk about shalom. But if you know you're disturbing shalom, if you know you're disturbing the peace, the harmony of the created order of humans, then you're starting to approach a sinful action. So I'm not gonna, and I don't think we should dwell too much on the intricacies of what's on the naughty list, like drugs, like sex, like alcohol, like stealing. We've got to move away from that. We've got to move away from this list of wrongs, and we've got to move more towards what is it I'm doing, what is it I'm participating in, what is it I'm endorsing that disturbs the shalom, the harmony with the earth, the harmony with our neighbors, the harmony with God, which is an important threefold. And it's the important threefold relationship throughout the Bible, not in that order. If you're destroying that, and that includes yourself. If your sins can be personal as well, so, and that's where the idea of you can do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anyone starts to break down. Although I guess it doesn't if you include hurting yourself, because you can sin alone. So rounding it up quickly, as best I can, it's not a list of right and wrongs. It's an idea, it's a movement towards what humans were not meant to be. It's a destructive path which relates to our relationship with God, our relationship with creation, and our relationship with each other. And then to a certain degree, you can decide for yourself what a sin is. Not totally, that's a very dangerous thing to be saying. But once you know what sinfulness can be, then you start to, and the Bible would say, once you know God well, you start to know what sin is somewhat intuitively. I am exhausted. The sleep thing is falling off the rails. I've still got up at sunrise every morning, but like, it started off up at sunrise, read a book, read the Bible, pray, start the day, and now it's like, get up at sunrise and just play on your phone in bed. Like, who knows if the sun's really up or not? It makes no real practical difference other than I'm tired and cranky. So I've got to remedy that a bit. I mean, the waking up at sunrise is still going, but the goal of the practice is somewhat lost this way. I'm still not spending any money though, so good for me, I guess. I'm still doing the videos, although I'm hating them. More tomorrow.